Welcome to the channel. It's showing some signs of summer. The snow is gone. Temperature has been really warm this week. So it is time to get this excavator ready for summer projects. So I have the engine oil draining down there, which is sort of normal. There's nothing special about that. But there's a couple other things I want to do to this. It'll probably take more than one video. One is replacing this cylinder. Not replacing it, but taking it off and having it rebuilt. I've never done cylinders myself. I don't have the large enough tools, and I just soon not start at this point. But you can see some drips there. It's dripping there, just out of the gland. So that's one project. I'll take that off today. I have some caps. I hope they're the right size. They're 5/8. At least this particular machine uses O-ring face seal fittings as opposed to like JIC or pipe thread. Another project I want to do is rework this, what I think is a homemade thumb. It doesn't really need teeth on it. I don't know why that was done like that. Anyhow, it doesn't mesh well with the bucket. I may make it a little bit wider, remove these teeth, probably just leave those on if I choose to leave that design, or maybe put on my own teeth from cut steel or something like that. The other project, a bigger one, which has been a sore spot for me with this machine, really the only significant one, which is these tracks come off the rails and come off the sprocket, mostly the idler, occasionally the sprocket, way too easy. I can just be on a slight incline and try to do a turn or something, and the next thing I know it, I have a track off. So I am going to make some rock guards, what they call rock guards. They're intended to prevent rocks and stuff from getting in here, but they serve another purpose, which is to keep these links, the rail, I think they're called a rail, sort of centered so that they can't come off. Because there's not a lot of lip here on these rollers, so there's really nothing. When this doesn't have any ground underneath it, the chain will sag, the grousers, the tracks will sag. And if you're turning or sliding down a hill or anything, this will sort of do a banana shape and then just work its way off one way or the other. I'm not sure why these don't help that. It could be that they're not close enough. But I want to make something that will maybe have a 1/4, 3/8 of an inch gap between some sort of a plate and these joints, or these shafts, pins that stick out the most here, so that if it wants to move out of the center of these rollers, it can't, at least by too much, and then hopefully prevent it from going off the track. So I have a couple of design ideas. I've looked to purchase them. I've called several places, looked online, and they're available for, I think, larger machines. I called one company that does this, and they couldn't find them for this machine, nor any of the newer machines that Cat makes that are of similar size, like a 307, a 308, 311. So I'm out of luck there. So I'm gonna do the oil change. There's only one thing that's interesting about this engine, or maybe it's all engine. It's a Mitsubishi engine with the oil filters. We'll get that done and then take that cylinder off. So the engine is a 4-cylinder Mitsubishi. It's a 4D31 is the model number. I think it's rated for 54 horsepower. Obviously diesel. The interesting thing regarding oil is, we'll look underneath, you can see it easy, but there's actually 2 oil filters. One that is horizontal and the other one down there, which is vertical. So there's the oil drain right there. You can see more clearly here the 2 oil filters. I'll talk about those in a second. So they're both out. You can see one is significantly bigger than the other one. But while these are draining, I'll show you the new ones. So the bigger filter here is what's called a full flow. You can see from the center it's all open. There's I think a bypass check valve down in there that plugs up. And then this one is called a bypass filter, and you'll notice it has a tiny hole, an orifice. So the bypass filter is a much finer mesh filter. So I'm not sure specifically of the specs, but if this is 25 micron, this might be 8 or 10 micron. So the bypass filter goes directly from the oil pump back to the oil sump. And it has an orifice in there to limit the amount of flow that's bypassed the normal engine lubrication. So a portion of the oil that's being pumped through the engine goes through this higher filtration filter back to the oil pan, oil sump, and the full flow filter does this normal thing. You know, it filters the oil that's going to the engine. This is the first time I had encountered anything like that. This may be typical for heavy machinery, I'm not sure, but when I got this machine, that was a new idea to me. I had to understand what it was. So when I'm putting a new filter in, I prefer to put as much oil in the filter as I can, just so that the oil is, so the engine doesn't have any interrupted oil supply when it starts up after an oil change. But this one sets sideways, so I can really only fill it up halfway without causing a mess. One thing I learned actually later in life than I would have liked to admit is how to pour oil or any fluid out of a canister like this that has an offset. I guess the typical inclination is to pour it like this, but if you do that, you'll start pouring really soon before this is tipped up very well, so you don't have good aim. It's going to drip down the side. The other thing is, if you do start flow, it's going to glug, 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 because this opening's all full of oil. There's no air to get in. So pouring it this way is the better way. So even with a huge opening like this, I can have a rather controlled stream, and it's not going to glug. Obviously, when it gets like half full, you can turn it over and do more of the conventional method with the spout at the bottom. So I'll let that settle. I can probably put some more in as the oil soaks through the filter element. I'm not going to worry about trying to fill up the bypass filter, because it's not in line with the path of the oil to the components of the engine. That's probably only about a quarter full. And that'll be good enough. It's a little dusty. So the capacity says this is 2.4 gallons, and this is 2.5 gallons, so I should be just shy of using this all. See if I can do this without spilling. Nope. Ah, that was it. What I always forget to do is put a rag down there, knowing I'm probably going to spill some. Because the filters aren't filled up yet, and the oil may not have all dripped down to the oil pan yet, but... Well, right there it shows it's more than full. So with the oil changed, turn my attention to this cylinder. So since I have to take the cylinder off anyhow, these hoses get a lot of sun up here, and you can see there's just some deterioration from age. They don't leak, but I'm going to replace them before they do leak. I'll try to catch as much oil as I can out of this. I do have some plugs, which should fit over there if I got the right size. So you can see here the black O-ring that seals in this thing here, and this is actually loose. You can see it's a separate piece because this can align itself so that it fits flat on the O-ring, which provides the seal. It seems to be a good fastening system. Just a little bit unique. So I decided to plug it. Well, one, to keep the dirt out, and the other is if I need to move my excavator. Granted, I can't move the stick anymore. I won't be able to. It'll be sort of dangling freely, but I can start the excavator and do stuff with it without oil spewing out. The other thing I like, well, generally about O-ring seals, is that you don't have to tighten the fitting down nearly as tight as like a JIC, which is a metal-to-metal seal, or even a pipe thread, which obviously is sealed with the threads. Now the question is, am I going to have enough room to take this out? We'll be close. I need to get a punch, but if I don't, I'll just have to cut it off, because I'm not moving that cylinder. Just shy. In fact, I think it's clear of the pin. It's just at the end of it is sticking in this piece of tubing or pipe. Well, that's fun. I guess it can just stay there until I put it back on. Son of a gun. Gonna have to cut that bolt off. In case you're wondering, I just had the vice grips on there to provide some support, because if you don't, oftentimes the bolt will just turn back and forth with a reciprocating blade, and it's just a mess. So that works well. I'm not going to take that one completely out until I get that one almost out, and then bring the tractor over here, put a strap around it so I can take the weight off. The other thing this has that I need to remove is grease line. So the grease line is there so you can more easily access the grease zerk from down here rather than climbing up on top of the machine. That one you can get standing down, but this one you need a ladder, so it's a nice thing because otherwise it'd likely be forgotten. So it's all strapped in, ready to take to the shop. So the cylinder is back, $400 later. I have new gland, and I'm assuming Yeah, I'm sure I have new seals on the piston itself as well. This was weeping a little bit, the cylinder piston. I don't know if it was leaking or not, but anyhow, it's all new, or like new. Now we just need to put it back together. So I put the clamps on there just so this wouldn't slide up here or down there and make it bump into anything. So if I remember right, I had one of these shims up here, and I have another one on the tracks down there that go to that one. Oh, has to go that way. For the retainer, and my fittings go up this way. Might be good to have that hole somewhat aligned there with the keeper rather than 90 degrees off. Plus I don't think of that until later. Well, what I just remembered is that this one, at least how I have this situated, this one needs to go in here first because it's not going to pass by this piece of the stick. So my options are to take that pin out and put this one in first, or since I have the lines plugged up here, start it up and just lift the boom, and this should drag along the ground and then make that a bit more accessible. Let's try that, see what happens. So that washer is right there. So I hold that up and pound it at the same time. So 2 new hoses. These weren't leaking, but one of them you could see the cable strands. Anyway, they were both sun checked. So a couple new ones, $260 later. They're 4,000 psi, 5/8 of an inch, with the O-ring face seal. So the O-ring seals against that surface and in this O-ring groove that is behind the cap. I put a bit of grease on the O-ring. That just helps keep it in place. So now, theoretically, I can extend that cylinder as needed. But it would be really helpful to have 2 people. last thing before I grease it and actually give the cylinder a real test is this remote grease line. There it is right there. Greased, a little bit of slop, clean that up. We'll test the cylinder and check those hoses for leaks. That one fitting I wiped because it was wet, but it was wet from when I put that on, because after I pressurized that side of the cylinder it did not leak. I couldn't see any evidence of leaking oil, so that looks good. That project is done. The next one is rock guards. So I have a design for that. I have the steel for that. I just need time. So stay tuned for that project. Thanks for watching this one. I appreciate it.